So, the title of the thing today is the Overtone series and the will of the pitch. Right? Everybody here has probably heard about how important the Overtone series is, right? Every time I've ever had a student who comes from like the physical sciences, like physics or chemistry, who wants to study music, they're always obsessed with the Overtone series. Like, it's so cool. And yes, it is cool. It's one of the only naturally occurring, let's just say, principles of music that the entire world discovered at one point or another, and nobody disagrees on, right? Every culture decides to split up the octave in different ways, right? From the Persians, classical music that's, depending on who you ask, between 23 and 30 some pitches, separating the octave and an uneven amount, to the system that, of course, we in the West eventually settled upon, which is the well-tempered mean tones, the not mean tone system, right? Where we, of course, equally divide the octave into 12 pitches, but we fudge it, right? And of course, we've talked about this when we've done lectures on the well-tempered, about how magical the fudging of it is, right? Because our ears have a tendency to always try to understand things in the best possible context vis-a-vis the Overtone series, right? And that's what I want to get to when we talk about the will of the pitch. You guys know where that term comes from?
Schenker.
Yeah, it's a Schenker term. And you know about me and Schenker, we don't see eye to eye on many things. But like, he was dead right about this, right? He proposed that pitches, when out in space, random note, has no personality or context whatsoever. But as soon as it's played either consecutively or at the same exact moment with another pitch, there's always a gravity that's created between them, right? And it's kind of like gravity in the sense that always the smaller object is trying to get closer to the bigger object, right? And of course, what's the biggest object? The biggest object is the overtones in their order, from the octave to the fifth to the fourth to the major third to the minor third to the major second to the minor second. Right? Now, what does that mean? That means that when I play any single pitch and against it play another, right? Immediately there's extreme tension between those two, because a major seventh is far up the overtone series. I think it's 23rd. Don't quote me on that. Before you get the leading tone, it's up there, and even then it's like kind of not exactly this pitch. And so when you hear it, your brain is immediately saying, no, please get Okay, we're back to the strong.
Why do I hear that falling?
Well, you'd hear it falling in different contexts, and we'll get to that. If it was approached as a suspension, you would hear it fall, right? For example. But that's a different context, because why? In that suspension gesture, it's trying to get to be a fifth. More on that later, promise. But the idea being here that every pitch that's not a strong member of the overtone series is trying to get to a stronger one. A fourth is always trying to become a third. Out in space. A sixth is always trying to become a fifth. A tritone the same way. Second, unison. Now, that might be somewhat self-explanatory, but the ramifications of that are incredibly powerful, right? We've already talked about, in other lectures, chromatic mediant relationships and how composers can easily fool us into thinking that one pitch is a variety of pitches. We often love to say that why are there only 12 pitches exactly, but there's only 7 names? Why don't we just call them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L? Right? I mean, it's kind of what Chopin tried to do, actually. And, you know, that leads to a lot of other cool stuff. But why was that never the case? Do you think that people didn't know there were 12 pitches when we were in the modal era, pre-medieval and all that? Of course they knew that there were 12 possible pitches based on the transposition of tetrachords and all the other things that they used to do. So why? Why are there 7 pitches and these 2 activators, sharp and flat, up and down? Why? It's because that system leads to actually an infinite number of pitches, which is more realistic than actually forcing them into 12. Does that make sense? Right? Because you can always, especially if you teach young people, as some of you know, that one of the questions they might ask you when they're like 6 or 7 is like, why is like F sharp and like G flat, like they're the same thing? Like, no, they are not the same thing. I try to explain why, and it's very complicated, isn't it? You can only explain why vis-a-vis other pitches that are being played at the same moment. Does that make sense?
I have a really advanced question.
Please.
So, in a certain context, is an F sharp, it's clearly doesn't have the exact pitch space of an F sharp, and it's being affected by the gravity of everything around it. So what we're actually doing is we're sort of quantifying and reducing complexity and just relying on our ear and intonation to get the actual pitch.
That's a difficult question to answer, but I'll take it from the roundabout side, right? When you sharp a pitch, you're not just saying that that pitch is higher. You're saying that that pitch also wants to rise. Sharp pitches do not fall, and flat pitches do not rise. Otherwise, I mean, they can, but you'd be forcing them to do so, which is what we call, as you may remember, chroma pitch, right? The famous example being from Well-Tempered number 1. E flat, moving to E natural. So unnatural. Shouldn't that have been? But the tendency of the E flat was to fall. You've got a dominant chord, and you've got a 7 above it. The tendency is to move to the dominant. And the E flat would have fallen to Re, from E flat to Re. Easy, that's the way it should be. But Bach took it in the other direction. And that's like a very violent gesture. Because in essence, the distance, the actual physical distance in hertz between that E flat and E natural is much more than a normal half step. Because the E flat was really low as part of the diminished seventh, trying to go to 5, and the F sharp above it pulling up. And so to pull it all the way up to E natural would be something that you could never have done in mean tone temperament. It's just too far apart.
Does that kind of give it, like, the music, kind of like a violent character?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think, look, remember, the well-tempered clear, the entire point of the well-tempered is to show you all the possibilities that exist when the 12 pitches are inexact. That's the whole idea.
Right.
That's why it ends with a 12-tone fugue, right? The B minor fugue being a 12-tone subject, right? And that's why the very first prelude shows you all first of all, the diatonic positions in order, then introduces all 5 accidentals in order with their proper resolution, and then gives you the chroma pitches at the end. It's like an encyclopedia of what you can do with basic tonal music at this time period. And it sets a standard for just about everything that happens until WC. Right? Remember that the Well-Tempered was the only score that all composers had on their piano at all times, in all eras afterwards. It's the only composer who has a 100% approval rating among composers. You could find a couple people who'd be like, Beethoven's super overrated. Like 90% of people would be like, no, of course Beethoven's a god. But like there'll be some people who say, well, I don't know, But who would ever say that about Bach?
5-star Yelp rating.
Yeah, 5-star Yelp.
Only 5-star.
Yeah. I mean, it's like being in theater and saying that Shakespeare's overrated. Like, it's just an indefensible position.
Get out.
It's an indefensible position. It sets the standard for so many hundreds of years to follow, right? And is it just that Bach is such an arch genius? Well, yeah, probably. But it's also that he came along at just the right time in music history, when tonal music finally broke away and became tonal and was no longer modal. Remember that Bach, even in his early chorales, uses modal key signatures, right? So Dorian was still in play. He studied with Buxtehude, right? And Buxtehude didn't even always write in classical notation, right? He wrote in organ tablature most of the time.
Wow.
Right? So just think about that for a
Wow.
second, okay? So, it's amazing because I was just looking for this awesome Buxtehude piece called Jesu Membra Nostra, one of his biggest oratorios. And I finally found a score on RMSLP, and I was like super excited. I opened it up, and it's an organ tablature. I can't even read it. Can't read it. I don't know what that means.
What's it called?
Jesu Membra Nostri.
Membra.
Is it on the canon?
Oh, it's in the canon list. Oh, yeah. It's so good. It's a 7-part cantato, each part highlighting a body part of Jesus on the cross. It's fascinating. And it's a little Baroque. Okay, it's a little Catholic Baroque, but it's fascinating. Anyways, so to get back to the topic at hand, the manipulation of the Overtone series and the tendency of the pitch is one of the things that you can chart through the eras very clearly. And you can learn a lot about composers by understanding how they deal with each of these things. Before we get to Chopin proper, I want to talk about harmony, in essence, spacing and doubling, which is something I love to talk about, the whole Nadia Boulanger 2 axes of harmony. Right? She would always start every harmony lecture by saying that harmony was the art of doubling and spacing. So we've talked about doubling a great deal before. I want to get into spacing for a second. I'm going to show you the example that I probably showed some of you before in lessons, but it's always my favorite. I'm going to play you this 7-note triad, or well, let's not even call it a triad. Let's just call it a 7-notey thing. This is a non-diatonic set of 7 pitches. Can't be diatonic because there's 4 whole tones in a row. Okay, fine. Now, when I play that for you, what is your initial reaction? Probably not much, right? To me, this is a sound. It's not a chord. It's a sound. And what do I mean by that? There's no functionality. There's no what we call syntax. Syntax, of course, is defined as like giving something its place in a sentence, right? Making something intelligible vis-a-vis other things. So when I say that we can't understand this as a chord, why? It's because as the pitches are so tightly grouped together, we can't decide which of them are consonant, which are dissonant, and thus there's nowhere for any of them to move. It's like being on a packed SEPTA bus. It just sucks. You want to get off there as soon as possible. Okay. Now I'm going to take the same 7 pitches and reorganize them just thusly. There's no doubling in this chord. These are 7 individual pitches. Fascinating. What is that? That's a dominant 7th chord. Plus the 9th. Plus 2 dissonances on top. We have a strong desire to fall. This is what they would normally do. Now, how can those 2 things be technically considered the same and obviously have such different functions? This is what American/German Roman numeral theory doesn't account for, which is why I've always found it problematic. You know, I've always said that using Roman numerals is like calling a chair a chair. It's like, okay, it's good. You got to know you can sit on it. It's good. But does it decide what kind of chair it is? Who made it? What's it made out of? What does it do? What's its function? No, it's just an object.
It's also like if you're looking at film.
Yeah.
So you can look at the stills, but it doesn't show you anything about the chord.
That's a good one too. I like that. That's a nice analogy.
Yeah.
It's better than my analogy. That's
true.
Can I take that one?
Sure.
Good, thanks. But it's true, right? Because this is loaded with syntax and connotation, and cultural connotations, and all kinds of fun stuff, right? It has a desire to do many, many things. So we call this more sonorous than the other one, right? This is non-sonorous. This is sonorous. So you want the official definition? The official definition is, I always get this wrong, it's a long one. We call something more sonorous when the chord is as closely aligned as possible to the overtone series produced by an octave below the bass. Sometimes called the
right below
undertone.
the bass.
That's the key. When I play this, all of the first 5 pitches of this are in the overtone series produced by this pitch. The 2 that are at the top are not in the series. It's just their dissonances.
Wait, so does that mean that like inversions are by...
That gets fascinating.
Okay.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 2 of these pitches. This is an F sharp. If your perfect pitch is a little off today, this is an F sharp dominant 7th chord with a B sharp and a D sharp on top. Okay? F sharp dominant 9th chord, I should say. Now, if I were to take the 9th and the root and reverse them, I mean, I'm just going to switch them, the chord would then be this. Hard to make sense out of that one either, isn't it? It's closer to something, but why is it wrong, or why is it more complex? Because now I'm basing it off this pitch. And some of those notes are in it, and some aren't. That one's a real problem. This one's a real problem. This one's a real problem.
So there's like no place for them to move because the interval structures.
Exactly. And the tendency of those pitches is too hard to hear. It's too complex, right?
It sounds kind of brown, like...
Exactly. And see, this is the thing, you know, I mean, I love it when people say, like, wasn't it awesome, like, in the Walter Krennic First Symphony, how he just has that 12-note chord right at the beginning? I'm like, yeah, but, you know, is it a chord? It's a sound, and when you hear it, you're like, whoa, what is that? But it's not functional, so it can't be tonal. That's not to say it's right or wrong. It's just, it's no longer in the arena of doubling and spacings of chords, right? When you intentionally ignore the tendency of pitch, you are by nature writing atonal music. It doesn't have to be 12-tone, it doesn't be anything, right? It could be all kinds of different systems. Octatonic to pentatonic to free atonality to whatever you want. But it's no longer in the realm of all, so all of the connotational aspects and the syntactical aspects of tonal music are gone. Which means that's a big hole to fill with some other logic. Can be done.
Yeah, you can always contextualize
You
these
can.
things. Yeah.
See Bartok.
Yeah.
See Stravinsky. See so
Right.
many people who
Right.
do this so well.
Yeah.
But always people ask me, like, your type of analysis, like, which, you know, can you do it on Weber? Yes, but not the aspects that have to do with tendency of pitch, which rules out a lot of things that we like to talk about. Okay? So, you know, even Schenker himself, right? Where does he stop analyzing pieces, right? I mean, he loves Brahms, right? Thinks Brahms is the greatest composer of all time. When he does a little bit of Schoenberg, he puts his toe in the water of Schoenberg. It's like, no, it doesn't work for this. And for him saying that his own theory didn't work is like amazing, right? The guy like tried to go out of his way to make everything he said true, which it's one of the reasons I had problems with Schenker. Octave transfer, 3-2-1. These are made up. I don't think that there's much basis for this in music.
Pretty German.
Yeah, I respect the theory. I really do. It's really impressive, and it's incredibly well put together, and it's worth studying. But there are some aspects of it which feel to me unnatural. Like they don't respect these principal laws of physics and nature. And,
very quick diversion question. Like, where would one start to just kind of get an overview of Schenkerian analysis?
well, I mean, if you go and read the actual text, they're really hard to put into your brain.
Yeah.
It's like when people want to read the Gradus at Parnassum, I'm like, don't go read the Gradus at Parnassum. read the writings about the Gradus.
Yeah.
Because it's just so dumbly written sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, the Gradus is written like a Greek dialogue. It's just like, you don't need
It's
to...
really funny.
It's funny.
It's like slapstick.
It really does not... It's pretty dated. Let's put it that way. But it's the same thing with Schenker. Like, you probably should read some of the textbooks about Schenkerian analysis.
Okay.
Rather than just...
Yeah.
And then go to the sources if you're still interested.
Yep. Okay.
Now let's take this interval and octave overtone theory into reality here with the Chopin. Of course, you guys know that Chopin is some of my core repertoire, and the Nocturnes are high up on that list. I always think that, you know, as you guys know, I have my canon list of my website of all the pieces that I think you should know, and I list all 19 Nocturnes as essential knowledge, all of them. Where I don't for other pieces, you know, of the 4 impromptus, I think you can probably skip the first 2. So I'm not like a total homer when it comes to this, but I do think that the Nocturnes are just pieces that teach you how to write, right? And one of the things about the Nocturnes that's most kind of, I don't know, glossed over or not even talked about at all, is that they're published in opus sets. And those sets are continuous. So if you're going to play the very first Chopin Nocturne, you better be ready to play number 2. And number 3, right? Only then can you get a full picture of what he's after, right? We should do. We might do one session next year on those first 3 because the Concerto mode is so nasty at that. It's so good, and it doesn't even show up in its fullness until the very end of the first one. So if you just play the first one, you're just like you just read the prelude of a book and you put it away. Like, you know, that's not good. So likewise. This set, Opus 27, 2 pieces, C sharp minor, D flat major. Very interesting. So you probably already kind of have an idea of maybe what he's up to. And to me, on the very first melody pitch of this piece, you should know what's happening. So I'm sure you know it. Let's listen. And so forth and so on. Now, the very first pitch you hear is fascinating to me, isn't it? I've always said this about Chopin. If you study him enough, you can study his markings, and you always know when he wants you to pay attention to something. If he writes sotto voce anywhere, pay attention. That's always when he's about to say, like, this is important. Like, play this in a super special way because this is a special moment. He does this all the time. And, you know, someone who spent the majority of my life studying Chopin, like, sotto voce is his go-to, like, by the way, buddy, if you're not paying attention, here's the real deal. And what happens when you hear that Mi natural? Now, a lot of pieces start with a chroma. That's a chroma, all right? Forced pitch taken up. What I find fascinating about this is maybe not the E natural itself so much, but the context that it places the first 2 measures in. Now, Chopin, of course, his pedaling is always up for grabs when it comes to, you know, is it real or not? He edited his own work so many times. He sometimes took things that were right and made them into mistakes. You know, a lot of problems sometimes. However, he does something similar to this in the Andante Spinato, if you remember that piece, where he has a full 4 bars of just this Andante Spinato. It's this. 3, 4, and then. Why? Because he was throwing you off the scent, right? You felt like the piece was in 3/4, it's in 6/8. Right? We've talked about that in another lecture, I think, about hypermetrics and fluidic metrics. Here, what scent is he throwing you off of? Remember, when you analyze music, it's not in the score; it's in your ears. Okay? You know this is in C sharp minor because you're looking at the key signature. We have no idea. We're really hearing it.
Yeah, it sounds like C sharp major.
It's pretty jarring.
It has to be C sharp major.
Yeah.
The overtones, what's being produced by playing these pitches, it just sounds like. I mean, you can. The C sharp is actually existing in pitch bass because it exists in overtones.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. When you're hearing this, the E sharp's already there, and he starts with. It just feels so wrong.
That's really,
right?
really interesting.
It's very jarring.
It's so.
Yeah, because it is like in the key that it's written in.
Oh
so
yeah,
it's not,
it looks totally right.
Right,
but
yeah.
it's totally wrong.
It's a really interesting trick of the light.
Exactly. And remember how I was telling you before how it's about the undertone that's producing these overtones in essence. Here, since you have just the 2 fifths, right? The pitch that's produced by the higher do sharp would be. That's where that pitch is coming from. And it also is giving you the octave below. So it's so strongly produced. Undertone and fundamental are both there to give you full major key feeling, full dominant 7th chord feeling.
So the third of that is strong enough in the Overtone series for it to be perceived.
Oh, I think so, 100%. I mean, and it's fascinating because the more you play this, even though you know this piece it is, now you're like, and what's fascinating is to me, after he plays you the wrong note, not only does he go to the actual correct pitch, but he also adds the 7th, which is also even more in line with the Overtone series. Right? Remember, it's one of the great fascinations in the universe that the Overtone series is a dominant 7th chord. It is a dominant 7th chord. Now, if you're a physics person, you'd be like, well, hold on, like the overtone that produces the dominant 7th is like kind of fudging the dominant 7th. It's actually, mathematically, it's just a little under that. But it's much closer, much closer to the B flat in a C major chord than an A. Right? And so, what's fascinating, that's why the dominant is the dominant, right? That's why it's the most important chord, because it's the one that's most in line with the series, right? So, it's fascinating here because the wrong pitch is followed by not just going to the major that you wanted, but filling out the entire series with that 7th. So, you know the old term painting chiaroscuro, right? I always feel like this is if you want to talk about chiaroscuro music, like here's the piece you pick. This piece constantly fluctuates between as bright a major / dominant 7th chord as you can find, and as dark an anti-overtone series work you can find. Think about how this phrase develops itself. So from the wrong pitch to the best we can have. We use it. We're off the beat. What is this? What is that? Just from a raw harmony point of view, what is that sonority? It's a tough one.
Which one?
When you have La, the Re natural La, and you have C sharp against the Do sharp, it's a highly dissonant chord, right? Against the fundamental, you have the 2 pitches that surround it. This is the chord which I really truly believe. I haven't found anybody to disprove me on this, although maybe somebody out there knows more than I don't. The chord that Chopin really added to the roster of common chords, the one that really didn't exist before, is the augmented 6th of 4, right? The actual augmented 6th of the subdominant pitch, and that's what this is, right? A lot of people look at this and they say, that's a Neapolitan, right? Because it's got the D natural and the La and the A natural, and so you're thinking that sounds like a flat 2 chord, right? But look carefully. It's not a flat 2 chord. The Fa that might have existed as a holdover from the measure before. This is measure 5. And this melody settles. Where does it settle? Here. That. That's the augmented sixth of F sharp, right? Which is 5/4 of the hum key. For other examples, again, I referenced the first nocturne before. Half step on either side of the tonic. Those two pitches as augmented sixths, both pointing towards it, produce the augmented sixth of 4. Did I lose you there? That's a little complicated. Anybody follow that?
Backtrack 1 sec.
Yeah.
You said the Overtone series is essentially a dominant 7. So you said the B flat is like closer to
an A than it is to a B natural.
Okay. Yeah.
It's on the flat side of a B flat.
Okay.
Like from a physics point of view, from a Hertz point of view.
Okay.
Once we've regulated the system to B12 pitches inside of the octave, it's definitely B flat.
Okay. Yeah.
But like the computer would tell you it's a little flatter than a B flat. For what it's worth.
Okay.
I'm not a physics person.
Yeah.
I just read those things and remembered them. So, again, the point I'm trying to make here is after the extremely dark opening, the very bright correction of the Overtone series, by the time we end the phrase, we have sonorities that include pitches that are the farthest off the Overtone series you can possibly have. From C sharp, we end up with a chord that has Re natural, D natural, right? A natural, and B sharp. Right, so let's think about that. That's the minor second, the minor sixth, and the leading tone. And if you look at your overtone chart, your extended overtone chart that goes all the way up to 50 overtones or whatever it is, you won't find any pitches anywhere that close until you're above the 30 range. Right? Because remember, the overtone series repeats all the pitches many times before you get to these tiny little partials. So, moral of the story is, that's about as against the overtone series as you can possibly get. Does that make sense? Which is why I love in the second phrase, after he's done the little quasi-modulation, right, and then back, look at measure 10 is fascinating. Measure 9, same as measure 5. And then just to do this, what are we doing? And then we start over. For the very first time, we have a tonal progression. We're in the minor mode. We're going to stay in the minor mode. We're going to do a minor thing. So let's do it. C minor, C sharp minor. And here's the real chord. Love that Neapolitan pitch there. That's a good one. It's really great.
So, would the tendency of, would that be kind of a chroma between the Re natural and the Do? Like, doesn't...
Remember, chromas have to be the exact same solfege pitch.
Okay. Oh, okay, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why the opening one, Mi and Mi sharp, those are chromas.
Okay.
It's like, that's the epitome of it.
It seems like it's going against the tendency of pitch
Oh, it
there.
totally is.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
right. I mean, again,
Because it wants to rise, but it goes down to the Do.
Right, and that's a dominant 7th chord in the hum key, right? But what's happening here is, notice in the left hand, he doesn't give you any D sharp, which would be the 5th of the chord. He omits it completely. So you can go and force it down more, right? And there's no name for that chord. Like, that D natural is not a chord tone that has a name. You leapt to a dissonance that was far against the chord and went the wrong direction with it. Like, I love it when there are things that we can't quantify with like basic theory terms. I love it.
Fuchs would fall over.
Oh, Fuchs would just lose his mind. He would just, if I lived on the 3rd floor, he would jump off of it. Right? But yeah, it's genius because he's been playing with that expectation of surrounding the tonic on both sides the entire time with that augmented 6th of 4. He takes it one level even further. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit since these are long pieces. Let's go to... Oh, actually, I want to make one more point. and this is kind of one of my own quirky theories that I don't have proof for, but I just want to throw it out into the ether and see if anybody writes me a nasty email. Think about this forever. Like, we're always talking about the modal era and the tonal era, right? So what differentiates the two? The tonal era is where we decide that there are the two modes that we're going to work in, right? We're going to work in major and minor. And we're going to leave things like Dorian and Phrygian behind as a key center. Now, as we've talked about, I think, on our last lecture, you have to wait until the time of Fauré and late Schumann before they start reinterpreting these modal pitches back into tonal music, i.e. Dorian 4 chords and Mixolydian 5/1 cadences. All this type of fun stuff that we love now, and has become a large part of French music and German music to a lesser extent, but also so. But think about this: why choose minor? Like, why minor? It's kind of a funny, weird thing, right? Because it's not that simple. Composers didn't just choose minor mode, like the actual Aeolian mode. They choose minor with that leading tone, right? And what that means is it forces you to have 3 leading tones in a key. And it gives you this dialectic between a raised 6th and 7th and a lowered 6th and 7th. And all the issues that come with that, which become augmented seconds, and all the things that can arise because of the differentiation between those two. So in essence, it kind of takes the best of minor and the best of Dorian and kind of like merges them together, right? And there's so much more potency in it because you have this uncertainty about the major-minor intervals, right? Meaning every second can be slightly different depending on where you are in the context of your tonal sentence, i.e. all this fun stuff that happens, right? So to me, like, they probably thought that Dorian was just a little too dull because, unless you start raising the leading tone. But if you're going to do that, wouldn't we rather just have the flat 6 as a possibility too? And all of a sudden you have this tonal minor. Tonal major didn't really change much. You look at major key music, major mode music from the Renaissance, like, it pretty much acts like major mode music does now. Well, a couple of differences here and there. But, it doesn't really change much. It's really the development of the minor mode that's so interesting, right? And leads to all of this incredibly beautiful things. And if you studied your Vidal harmony, you know that the exceptions to root position motion both come from the minor mode. 2/5 switch, which in major is not necessary. You don't have to do it. You could just do, but you can't do that in minor, right? So these are forced onto the harmonic world of 4-part writing by the minor mode and all of its little intricacies.
So that kind of, opened up more possibilities for harmonic writing.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So, I mean, Chopin is one of these composers who's so keenly aware of this. We talk about the mazurkas, which are really written to reflect modal ideas and to play around with, can we really make something tonal feel modal? I mean, don't you think Fauré played those? It was like, bingo, jackpot. I know what I'm going to work on next. Right? But in this nocturne, in these 2 set of nocturnes, he does the same set of situations. So let's fast forward to bar 22, if you don't mind. This is the end of the A section. So that was, he'd already extended that weirdo augmented 6 by measure before. Now he sends it for 2 whole measures, and we just get lost in the soup. Right? I mean, this is one of those great moments that defies harmonic identification. Right? You could put a Roman numeral on that and say augmented 6th of 4 over 1. But it seems kind of silly, doesn't it? Right? Especially in the last measure there before the double bar, when he actually gives you the full D major triad. And remember, the C sharp has been the fundamental this entire time. It's the top, right? And it seems like all those other pitches need to get in line with it. Go back to being that. But what does the C sharp actually eventually do? It moves, finally. And that feels so wrong. Because, like, why is the tonic going down? Like, now, you might, again, a simplistic look at this is like, well, it's no big deal. You're just going to the leading tone, and it's a 5-part. Well, yeah, but you're overlooking what's really happening here. When the fake Neapolitan / augmented 6 was finally supposed to go back to tonic and finish this. actually goes to the dominant. And that propels you into this next section. Now, I will say that in this next couple of, basically the next, let's see, what is it, 16 bars, he gives you a pretty standard Chopin progression. He's done this type of thing a lot. This is like your classic voice exchange progression, right? What do I say when I mean voice exchange? There's an interior voice exchange here between the alto and the bass, right? And the whole thing sequenced. And it's just a bigger version of the same thing. And then an even bigger version of the same thing. This is Chopin's classic way of doing it. So that's not unusual. What is unusual, of course, is the rest of it. What's the accompaniment doing? It's playing exactly what we've been talking about, surrounding a central pitch with its half steps on either side. Right? This time it just happens to be the dominant. Right? And so this is what I say. We talked about species texture last week. When you look at a passage of music like this, you might not realize, like, you might think like, oh, well, you know, harmonically this is kind of a boring passage. He's just going 5-1, 5-1, and then 5-1, 5-1 in 4, and then back and forth. Well, yeah, of course. That's been going on since the beginning of 5 and 1, right? What makes this different from all those other passages and those other pieces? The species, the texture, right? And the texture happens to coincide perfectly with this idea. Surround the pitch with the two half steps, thus blurring the overtone series. And those of you who've heard me lecture about Chopin before, you know he loves to take his contrapuntal motive ideas from the beginning and like either if they're out in front, then you hide them in the middle, or vice versa. If they're in the middle and they're hidden, you make them front and center in the middle section. Exactly what he's doing. Okay, all this comes to a big explosion moment. This is an amazing piece, right? Because think about how quiet and dark and scary it's been, you know, to revert back to using non-theory words. And then, you know, after the 16-bar passage, you're going to get an appassionato double forte passage with a huge crescendo to triple forte. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to play double forte because I'm going to wreck my piano. But here we go. They say, we just went on a journey right there. When we got through all those diminished chords at 45, 46, we ended up in E major, right? Big 6/4 chord. That might not be too unexpected. It's a relative major. And so it's like finally we get to the brightest moment we can do. Now, you know, those of you who, again, heard me talk about this, I keep saying it. Chopin has this weird obsession with E major and A flat major. It's like super creepy and strange. Every piece that's in A flat, he modulates to E and vice versa. It's such a weird thing. It's the chromatic median. I don't know why. It's like, I mean, seriously, do you want me to show you like 5 examples in 2 seconds? I will. Trust me. Here's Chopin Etude number 2 from the set at the end of his life. Middle section. There it is. Okay, Opus 10, number 10. This one. Okay, in the middle section. Super creepy, right? Okay, A flat. I gotta think about this. A flat prelude from the 24 preludes. It starts with the. It's an octave higher, but anyway, that's where it starts. At the end, you have. Like, what is your fascination moving between these two keys? It's not a normal thing to move from a chromatic median setup. I mean, it's not a go-to Chopin modulation technique.
It's supposed to be A flat Polonaise.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
See, I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's a really good one. He's just obsessed with this motion between these two sonorities. I feel like I'm forgetting another huge one off the top of my head, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You get the point. So here it's kind of fascinating because the move from E to A flat is interesting, right? E is the relative major, but A flat is an enharmonic spelling of the dominant, of the original key, right? And that's how it's going to be used. So technically, we're really in G sharp major by the time you make this move. He rewrites it as A flat, you get this big pattern, and eventually the big cadence. I always love it when you got to just put your thumb on the two black keys. It's always a lot of fun playing. Okay, now he's got another passage of half steps, right? Fantastic. We finally made it. Here's A flat major that we've been wanting forever. This is the brightest moment of the piece, right? And not only do we get to the D flat major and we feel great about it, but do you see how we immediately go to the 4 chord? We immediately make it even brighter by going to the brightest chord of the 7, right? The predominant, right? There's something really weird happens. Now you've just been totally deceived. What just happened? We modulated from D flat major to C major in 2 milliseconds, which is highly unusual in this time period, right? And again reflects the motion of half steps in the bass, right? From remember how the A section moved to the B section, from the C sharp to a B sharp. Same thing here. It's D flat, C natural. That's C major. Every time I've ever played it, it just feels so weird. And it also says pianissimo on it, right? And it feels like we've been at double forte. So where did that happen? Like, it's funny when you hear a lot of like the great pianists play this, they always have trouble with this passage. Because it's like, if you make this too loud and you go, which it feels like it really should be, then you have literally 1 millisecond to go. It's like, that doesn't feel right. So, I do have a little bit of a question about what Chopin had in mind here dynamically. He's a little inconsistent, and of course we always have this problem with Chopin where like his editors are such a disaster that maybe there's a missing dynamic in here, or maybe that pianissimo is a double forte. Who knows? Like, I mean, that's serious. Stuff like that happens in his music, and it makes it into the text. It drives me insane. This summer at EMA, if you will remember, we had Roy Howitt, my hero. Roy Howitt is the guy that I've always just wanted his job forever. He's like the Indiana Jones of music. Like he's the head editor for Peters and Durand, and so he just goes around the world like collecting manuscripts and finding somebody who's still alive that knew Jorge somehow. Like just crazy, awesome stuff. That's all he does. It's great. And he's like turned his attention to Chopin recently about doing a new edition for them. So it was so awesome to talk to him in the summer and be like, oh wow, you really think that that's actually a pianissimo? Like, you know, are there sources where it's double forte?
Did you know anyone who knew Chopin?
That would be scary.
Yeah.
Have to be a vampire. Yeah. So in any case, you just see the extreme markings in this piece. I mean, look after the key change, triple forte again with the crescendo. That's insanity. You know, in the first ballade, he writes the double forte and he writes il più forte possibile, right, as loud as possible. But it still says double forte. This says triple forte with the crescendo. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of the dynamics. I will admit defeat on that. Okay, so we get to that top bit. Let's keep going. Look at the half steps. Maybe a little nod to Beethoven here. A couple things I love about this. Obviously, you can hear all the half steps, right? Where do we stop at the end of that long run? I noticed at the very end, you would think you would do this and go to the low C sharp. But it doesn't do that. It always feels weird, doesn't it? But that is so clutch for several reasons. I've seen editions that puts the low C sharp in there, and I'm like, oh, you just killed the piece. You just murdered it right there. 2 reasons. 1, that would change the overtone and undertone position of the E natural about to come up again. it would be an octave too high. Like if it was this, you should hear this. That feels right now. But when I'm here, it feels right to be where it is. Oh, my other reason for it, of course, look at the penultimate bar. What do you finally get? The low C sharp. Right? And so that low Re sharp has been hanging there in the resonance forever, waiting to go. And that's why it feels so great when you finally end this piece. We'll get to that in a second. All right, so I want to fast forward. See the ritenuto? This is bar 93. We've gone through the A section just a shortened period of time here. It says calm duolo. What a marking that is, right? With pain, right? And look at this. As soon as I do that, you hear what's already happened? We already hear the major. It's already happened. Right, so now we just plays it for the first time. All the hanging pitches here. Alright, did we see in this gesture? Could it be any brighter than this? We're using all 7 diatonic pitches. We're hanging 7th and 9th chords. This is as bright as you could possibly get in the major mode. Yeah. Major 4 with the 9th, played, no suspension. Find them in a brighter position. And then, since he's giving you the low C sharp, now he's going to give you the low E sharp. Right here at the very end. Perfect. Fill out all the overtone series of all the C sharps. Nice. Pretty spectacular ending, right? I know, it's really amazing. So this is a weird set because, again, I did tell you at the beginning that this is a set of 2. So it's like, it kind of seems like, when you get to this point, hasn't he resolved all the issues? Yeah. Right? Like, you think like, well, yeah, I mean, you know, he worked it. I mean, this is such a massive nocturne for being only really like 3.5 minutes. It's not very long. It's one of the shorter ones, considering just how dense it really is, right? So what's he going to do? Well, he's going to waste no time in showing you that this is not going to be in minor. It's going to give you immediately the perfect position. And give you instead of, he's going to give you the right one. So just notice how bright this really is, right? From the low D flat, he's got fa, fa, and now a high fa. All major thirds are covered. Remember how it took until the very last measure of the first one to get to that position where all these pitches were covered. Now in the very second measure with that opening pitch, he goes. And I think you're just meant to really hear the difference between this and this. So, I'm not going to lead you through this whole one. It's a fascinating piece, and there's so much to talk about in this one. It's very complicated. But here's what I will tell you. He never goes to C sharp minor. He never goes to D flat minor. That would be like going back in time. Like, it's kind of like that part of this issue of this piece has been solved. We're finally in major, and you know what? Gosh darn it, we're just going to enjoy this crap, right? Now, this piece, if you know it, it's one of the more opulent of all the nocturnes, right? It's a right-hand party. It has a million ornaments on ornaments, right? I mean, and I think that's the focus here. It's like we've resolved our harmonic disputes. Like we fought the harmonic war. We finally got to major. We're in line with the overtone series. Finally. Now, you know what? We're just going to enjoy how beautiful I can make this melody.
So it's earned it.
You know, you earned it. Like, I always feel like it drives me nuts when people just play this one Like, people do it in concerts all the time, but just play this one. And it's like, oh, it's the sweetest, most saccharine piece. It's like, you don't know what we just had to go through to get to this. Like, you know, this is the dessert. Okay?
Yeah.
The first one was the main meal. So this is still a very complex and great piece, but you can tell as soon as you get to like measure 10 what the focus is going to be. You see how it says espressivo here? How ornamented is this? Jesus, it's just, you know, it's an ornament party. And it's great. I mean, only Chopin writes like this, and we love it. It's like one of his unique things that even his contemporaries, Schumann, Mendelssohn, Liszt, they never really did this type of thing, you know. Liszt will have thirds galore up and down the piano all day long. But this type of just incredibly opulent ornamentation of the melodic line is one of the Chopin things that puts him in the pantheon. I will point out one thing. He does do his modulations as you would expect. For, you know, because we had the chromatic modulations before. He modulates to A major in this one, so you can imagine some of the shenanigans that entails. But by the end of it, there's no real doubt at where he is. Right? The only doubt that he places in your mind at all is in the very coda of the piece. 66. Coincidentally enough, bar 66 is the only place it really gets dark. Bach would have appreciated it. One more tiny tangent. Don't you always think it's weird, as superstitious as Bach was, right? He died when he was 65, right? He hated the number 66 in the Passion. Chopin also hated the number 66. His final opus before he died was 65.
Oh, wow.
Holy hell.
I know. 66 and on are the posthumous opus numbers. So
Wow.
it's
Creepy.
like... Creepy! So this is after a big cadence. You get this final little gesture here. That's the only real attempt at maybe you're going to have minor. But by the time you get to the next bar, it's already gone. You just realize, it's just going to be a series of diminished seventh chord, and so he's not going to play with you. But I will point to one more like nod towards minor. Look at 71. Here in the alto. Because I'm at and right there. And then just the long scales. Every pianist just really fears this ending. It's so hard. You know, diminuendo 7s against 6s have to be perfect. Double, you know, parallel 6. It's like, oh man, don't make it easy. So, you know, I really feel like the core drama of this set of Nocturnes is what we talked about. This fight with the Overtone series. This kind of like the decision to negate it on purpose and then to lead us back to it, right? Through that huge B section, and then finally at the coda proving that was exactly the right idea. What an excellent, beautiful idea for form. You know, people always ask me about form. Like, yeah, let's talk about form. I'm going to diagram some forms. I'm like, yeah, sure, we can do that. But like, you can do all the sonatas in the world, and you'll never come up with something like this, right? This is a more esoteric kind of idea about creating a form that self-sustains. And I love that, like a prelude and fugue in the Well-Tempered, these two nocturnes feel that way. Like a lot of the Well-Tempereds are like this. Like the fight is in the prelude, and the fugue is the result, right? And of course, Chopin, being one of the biggest students of Bach of his day, knew this very well. So, good. Any questions on that?
How did they learn about this stuff? You know, I mean, I know it's a big question.
I'm
How did they study?
I'm not the expert on Chopin's education. I know he studied with a very famous theorist that also taught Beethoven. But I can't remember his name. It starts with a Z. It's a real funny name. They're not that far apart in age. Everybody always forgets this, right? I mean, when did Beethoven die? 1827, right? So Chopin was 17 years old. Chopin only lived to be 39. So almost half of his life, Beethoven was alive and writing, right? So like the Ninth Symphony came out, he would have been aware of it. Like probably came out when he was what, 12, 13? Yeah, I mean, people grew up faster than we do back then. Like he was already a rock star pianist, like ready to make his career, you know. And he worshipped Beethoven. He never admitted it ever. I mean, like there's so many pieces where I can just show you how he ripped Beethoven off left and right. And you know, he always said in private that he worshipped Mozart and worshipped Bach. But Beethoven is just too bombastic for his taste. Well, that might be true, but he also just learned a lot from that guy. You know. So. But in terms of like what the actual education was about these things at those times, I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, I really kind of sense that a lot of these things were just by nature of feel, by the ear. I think a lot of it can also be attributed to the fact of the piano technology getting better and better and better. You know, Chopin had almost the modern piano, like real close. He didn't have the top couple of keys, the bottom couple of keys, didn't have the middle pedal, didn't have the 9-foot, right? But they were close. They were really getting close. And really, when you have the piano that's this large, I mean, this piano's half the size of a large piano, right? And you can really hear a well-tuned instrument, what's really happening. You're really hearing these pitches. Right, on those old dinky forte pianos and harpsichords, you know, it's really hard. You got to really have a good ear to hear that stuff, and they have to be tuned perfectly. Right, but on those more modern pianos, it's just the overtones are just there, and with the invention of the pedal being as important as it is, it's just there.
Another fact about this is if piano is the instrument of composition, the shorter a piano string is, the more out of tune the overtones are from their perfect theoretical. So they're just all sharp with it.
Right.
So you actually can't play 3 octaves apart in tune from each other.
Exactly. And so, you know, with the advent of all this modern technology like this, I think it becomes a lot easier. But I don't know, I mean, who's the first person to talk about overtones? I mean, people have been talking about them since early, you know, medieval theory. But in the context that we're talking about it, probably not until Fauré and Boulanger's generation that people start really, like, making a study about how this is affecting things. Tendency of pitch and such. I mean, after all, to bring it all back to Schenker, like, he wrote that book around 1890-something. I don't know the exact date. Somewhere in that range. So when he starts talking about tendencies of pitches, and that composers are always being sensitive to this and this. So it's about that time period that I think it becomes conscious.
Yes.
Right in the same time period where composers were starting to question what they could do with pitch that was brand new. You know, what can I do that doesn't sound like everybody else for the first time? How can I break from tradition completely, as people were just about to do? So, good question. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, people. Appreciate it. Thank you, people, for watching. Glad you enjoyed. Bye.